It's the show where we take you inside the game before the game begins. It's the pregame. With your host, Charles Bishop and Neely. So get ready, because we pregame harder than the other show's party. It's the pregame.
Your ad could be ran here. MyJBN.com/support. MyJBN.com/support for more information.
Time to call a credit repair company to fix my credit.
Hold the phone, man. You can do it yourself with Credit Versio.
That's way too hard. Call the credit repair company. Most credit repair companies only work on 1 or 2 accounts at a time, making it slow and expensive. You won't figure that out for months. Ignore him. Credit Versio's brilliant software scans all 3 credit bureaus, finds the accounts that are hurting your score, and guides you through the entire process. Anyone can do it. Let's fast forward and see the results. Wow, I fixed my own credit and saved hundreds. You can do this. Visit creditversio.com.
At CDW, we get speed as the new currency of success.
Our team spends way too much time tending to outdated applications and software when they should be focused on driving application agility and innovation.
CDW Amplified Development Services modernizes software and application development to help accelerate innovation and digital transformation.
So you mean building new applications, UI, and mobile interfaces?
Well, you said you needed to innovate more quickly.
Oh, so he's a listener.
To do more at scale, trust CDW Amplified Development Services.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids' apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
This is the dean.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to a live edition of the BCSN Sports Wrap. I'm Bryan Fulford That's A.D. Drew. It's good to be here with you this evening. Drew, what's how you feeling, my man? What's the latest with you?
Doing all right. Had a little bit of technical issues on my end. Got some weather in the area, so I was having a little bit of trouble logging on and getting in for the show. So if I should happen to jump off, or the whole show should happen to jump off, everyone, just be patient. We'll get it back up as soon as we can. But had some tornadic activity in the area which I live here in South Georgia. Other than that,
well said. And
I'm doing better than a couple of a couple of NFL Hall of Famers. One of them who's a HBCU alum.
Who are you talking about? I mean, obviously we know about the Wildcat, but who are you talking about?
I'm talking about the Tiger, the Savannah State Tiger, that works for Fox
so
Sports.
see, there's Uncle Shay Shay, Unc.
Yeah.
Well, look. Oh, you have you have issues with Unc. You have a problem with how he handled, because hey, I don't think anybody wanted the smoke that Unc was coming with, and I don't care if you say that's the brown Hennessy or the whatever was flowing in LA, but nobody wanted
light or dark, whichever one it is. He don't need to do it anymore.
Oh, it was
Here's
dark.
my problem with
it was
that,
dark.
Brian.
It was dark.
You know what my problem with that is, Brian?
What's that?
As an athlete, an ex-professional athlete who sits there and has said on his show with that other guy, who will remain nameless on this show, that he's gotten on fans who think because they pay the price of admission, they can say and do anything to athletes. And I'll be doggone if he doesn't do what he says other fans should not do. It's like the pot calling the kettle black now. If he ever brings that up on his show ever again,
will
if
his
that was a
broadcast
fan,
partner bring it up? That'll be interesting to see. Will his broadcast partner bring it up?
I think it's fair game.
It is. I think it is fair.
I mean, yeah. I mean, and question is, will he apologize on his show, just like he wanted his partner to apologize on the show?
Yeah. Hey, look. Yeah. You know what? That's a great point. But I just, man, this is we're in such a where did this culture of softness, this cancel culture, I just don't understand how we transition to that. Is this all because end product of the Me Too movement? I mean, I'm maybe drawing parallels, but when did everybody get so soft? I mean, when did basketball players really start getting so soft that you cared about? I mean, people have been heckling and saying things in the crowd, and what was it they were always told? You got to concentrate on what's happening here on the floor. And now all of a sudden, for the last, I don't know, it feels like a decade, guys have gotten really, really soft in games. I don't know. It's just the fake tough guy thing is getting played. Because none of these guys can squish a grape. And I don't think any of them wanted that smoke from Uncle Shannon. Now that's the one thing I will say. You can talk. Who was it? Dylan Brooks, and then who was the other guy? Steven Adams. I mean, Steven Adams. You let a guy kick you square in the jewels in the middle of a game and did nothing. So I mean, to me, you've lost all kinds of street cred, and
you get kicked in the ding ding in the middle of a game, you might not be able to do anything.
Well, I'm fighting. I'm fighting somehow, some way before I go down. While the adrenaline is still there,
you gotta get that feeling back.
Before the feeling hits you, you're just like, hey, what was it? The old joke by Eddie Murphy. One time, he's like, "Wait a minute, was that
Oh, and it was like that 3 second delay. Yeah, before you say, wait a minute, did I just get? Oh, yes, I did. Oh, yeah. So before that hits you, you had a few seconds to do something. Like I saw a video the other day while we're talking about softness and stuff. I saw a video of a high school game. I can't think of the young player. Somebody relatively well known on the circuit, but he dunked. He dunked on a kid. Obviously, he caught a body. He proceeded after the dunk because the kid is laying there. He walked over him, but what was worse about the walk, he stepped on the kid's hands. Like the kid was laid out like a body, like this. Two hands were on the ground, like this. I don't think I saw the tech, but I saw the guy literally. He stepped on his hands. He stepped on his left hand right as he was walking over him. And I'm watching his teammates, and not one teammate. Now I know a couple guys went to go help him off the ground. Hey, that's great. And I shouldn't be on line. I'm not advocating. I'm not. Look, I am. I'm trying to word.
Be careful. Let's change the subject, Brian, before you put your foot in your mouth.
No. I can't change the subject because I already tweeted it out. But let me just say, I'm just trying to understand why no teammates or how there was no incident or brush up by teammates of the kid who got walked over and stepped on. Drew, if somebody had dunked on you and they had walked over you and stepped on you,
never happened.
Well, let's just say in the one rare moment that
I was
it did,
smart enough not to get caught.
See, there you go. That's you, right?
No,
right.
Yeah, I was smart enough never to get caught.
Well,
I would not be.
All I know is this kid. He deserves something from his teammates. Because I
can I give you another soft one, Brian? While we change,
yeah,
on
please.
this subject. The college, I believe it was a college basketball coach who just was reprimanded. I believe he was ultimately fired for disciplining his kids on the road, and one of the punishments was doing 300 push-ups.
Where did he do them at?
I mean, I don't know. I don't remember the particulars, but this happened out in California. This incident happened in California, and they were complaining about the 300 push-ups, Brian. 300 push-ups.
I wish.
If for those who are under the age of 30, if you would have known some of the stuff that us in the 50 over crowd had to do in order to play ball, and some of the language that was used at us when we played ball,
shocking.
You would understand why my generation, the generation me and Brian is in, calls the younger generation soft.
Yeah. I just want, and I say that as a mentality wise thing. I think there is there still has to be room for boys to be boys, men to be men, and at the same time, yes, be sensitive and aware of our surroundings and our fellow humans, our women, things of that nature. But sometimes in sport, in competition, I'm not talking about this other stuff. I'm talking about in sport and competition, there has to be a level of toughness, and softness does not win you ball games. So, going back to the whole Shannon Sharp thing again, being triggered by Shannon Sharp, you can throw out, hey, you throw an F-bomb at Shannon, he throws it back. All right, just smile at it and everybody's but you acting like you're gonna come over and walk over to somebody, or what? You want to get closer to yell expletives? Come on now. That's that fake tough guy stuff. That's where it all falls apart. Teammates coming over. What? I don't need your teammates to come over. So anyway, lost respect for the Grizzlies. A lot of people starting to think of the Grizzlies as a team that might go. I tell you, Drew, they showed me their toughness right there. They won't make it to the NBA Finals. I'm calling it now. No toughness. Soft. Won't make it to the finals. Like Ja Morant. I love him. Great kid. Team soft. But anyway, we came here to talk about one of the bigger stories happening over the past week. And again, want to start out by saying thank you to everybody watching. Already jumped into the chat rooms on YouTube and Facebook. Yeah, we got to talk about Ed Reed, Hall of Famer Ed Reed.
How you get fired on your day off, Brian? How you get fired on your day off? Before you even had a day off.
Was he? Look, I'm still trying to figure out. 25 days in.
Well, he technically wasn't fired because he never signed a contract. So
that's my point. So 25 days since the announcement came out that the school had reached an agreement in principle, if I recall the original press release, to bring on Ed Reed as the next coach of the Bethune-Cookman University Wildcats. 25 days later, it has all fell apart, and we have so much that we can expound upon because it happened during a recruiting weekend in a nasty sort of way, in public, for everybody to see. And, those are the kind of PR things okay, let me just start. We have lots of questions, Drew. I know you're going to have some for me. I'm going to have some for you. But let me start with this one. What is a bigger or worst PR hit? The stuff that Ed Reed did that initially was on social media, or the whole events Saturday that played out not only in front of recruits, but also on social media? I just quickly want your thoughts. Which of the two would you say was worse? The worst PR disaster from a Bethune-Cookman University perspective?
It would have to be Bethune to be, because you expect an organization, and for lack of a better word, the university is an organization, Bethune. You would have to expect
Which of the two? Which of the two? The first one or the second one? Like which of the two?
Bethune.
The one that just happened this weekend. On Saturday.
The one that happened yesterday.
I got you.
That's what I meant when I said Bethune. You would have to say that was a little bit worse, because you expect the organization with the size of Bethune and with the knowledge and know-how there and the people there to think certain things through. This was not a life or death situation where Ed Reed was charged with murder or something along those lines, where you had to usher that right there to there. Somebody should have thought about this from a marketing point of view. How can we we know we're going to take a hit on this. No matter what we do, we know we're going to take a hit on this. How do we soften this blow?
Mm-hmm.
Someone should have known that there were 26 recruits coming in to look at your university, to consider continuing their education at your university. If you're going to do, and just think about these kids, there's no way in heck now Bethune is probably on any of those folks' radar, just because a recruiting trip is special. Whether you sign with that school, whether you do not sign with that school, your recruiting trips are special. You come there for the weekend. Mom and dad are allowed to come. Mom and dad come. They have things for the parents to help the parents convince you to go. They have things you're supposed to have. Your college, somebody hosts you for the weekend. There's certain things that you go through and do, and that's been ruined. That has been ruined. And if it's one of your 5 official, damn, I just wasted an official visit on this garbage.
Yes, because the school
That's
did
why
make it clear it was an official visit. They were very adamant. I use the word adamant, but it did come out that some people did carry on with their campus visit because it was still counted as a recruiting visit. Although there were some people who chose to leave, and I did hear from someone who was there with his son, and they chose to leave. But others did stay and went through the campus visit because it was an official visit. It counted as an official visit.
Brian, there's only one weekend left before signing day.
Yep.
So these things have to be coordinated as far as the children. They can't come back next week on a visit because they're probably going to be at another university next weekend. So I just think because of that was the bad. That was the worst of it, because you would think an organization such as Bethune-Cookman would have thought, somebody would have thought about this, and maybe somebody did. Either they didn't speak up loud enough, or their voice was squashed, and the powers that be decided not to listen to them. The powers that be probably don't have, or too far removed from their kids possibly going through an experience like this where they were being recruited and having to go on these visits, because that's a moment that child would never get back. They
Let's
say,
talk about that for a second.
First impressions, Brian. Bad first impression about Bethune-Cookman for a 26 young man.
Sure. Yeah. No, I can't disagree. One of the things that you and I talked about when we first saw this, and the fact that the contract thing was still going on, and I want to read the statement because we're talking about the semantics of Ed Reed's statement that he published through his Ed Reed Foundation, the actual press thing that he did on Instagram Live, and the university announcement. But you and I were talking about, quickly before I read that Ed announcement, we were talking about how did we get to this point? Because Ed Reed, if he wasn't official, should he have been out there in the first place? And I maintain, Drew, I maintain true that you're working under the principle of I'm trusting you, and even though we haven't worked, I know we're still working out the agreement and everything, but I know it's also important for our coach to be there. And I feel and I'm speaking as, I'm just saying BCU. I don't know who it is. I don't know whether it's the AD. I don't know whether it's somebody above the AD. I don't know if it's the president or whatever. I don't know their whole structure. But somebody said it was okay for Ed Reed to be on campus, to be on a golf cart, to be doing whatever it was he was doing for the week and a half that he was doing before he got triggered by some comments on Instagram Live and chose to, go off, and still there was no, and we said it 2 weeks ago, there's still no introductory press conference. And then I honestly felt like, whoa, that just changed, that whole thing that he did changed the whole tone for what's happening in the background, because he embarrassed a lot of people. Now, a lot of people are going to side with, oh, well, he was telling the truth because Uncle Prime said, or Coach Prime said the truth needs to be told. Okay, you can go ahead and let the truth be told. But again, the thing that bothered me about all of the stuff all the stuff that he said when he made the statement that in his week and a half that he'd done more than people who'd been there for years, for me, that bothered me. I thought that was the most disrespectful thing that he had said, even though he may have been right about a lot of things.
Or disrespectful to Dr. Kane.
More what?
More disrespectful to the Dr. Kane comment?
I didn't hear the Dr. Kane comment. When was that said? Hold on. Was that said what, Saturday?
I believe it was in the original one. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it was in the original one when he was talking about Dr. Bethune.
Okay, I don't recall, but I just know if I had been someone who'd been for years maybe and had worked in athletics or any other department, I really would have felt some kind of way about that, you know. And that was the part that I felt like that's where he's going to start having troubles at that point. And so, all things were quiet for the week, maybe a week and a half it was. And
It
then,
hasn't been a week, Brian.
huh?
It hasn't been a week.
It hasn't been a week. Well,
no, this was like
so
the original tweet, the original Instagram post came out a week from Saturday. This is all transpired.
Wow.
And 7 days later, he was told his services would not be needed.
All right. So, I thought he said a lot of things and, originally a week ago and didn't really give clear background on it. But in his statement that he released at, let me make sure I got the time of this right, that he released it at 11:06 Saturday. The statement from the Ed Reed regarding Bethune-Cookman. He said, Bethune-Cookman University has been working with my legal team to craft contract terms with the language and resources we knew were needed to build a successful football program. It's my desire to not only coach football, but to be an agent of change that most people just talk about being. However, after weeks of negotiations, I've been informed that the university won't be ratifying my contract and won't make good on the agreement we had in principle, which had provisions and resources best needed to support the student athletes. Now, that's another little thing in there, Drew, that I always think, let's always bring it back to the student athletes, right? Because that's why we're all doing this. It's not about me. It's not about my ego, not about how anything I did or said incorrectly. Let's put the focus back on the student athletes, okay? I was committed to coaching and cultivating a relationship with the university, players, community, and the fans. It's extremely disappointing this won't be happening. What kind of relationships, Drew, do you build when you publicly chastise me about my house? That's like me giving you a room to stay in as a visitor in my house, and then you get on Instagram and say, look at this man, look at this man's kitchen. This man's kitchen is horrible. They don't clean up nothing. They don't clean the stove. Look at the kit. Look at the refrigerator. Look at the little nasty stuff left in the refrigerator. This milk is
a month old.
Thank you. So what kind of relationship are you building when you do all of that? All right. I'm just asking questions.
I ain't gotta let you stay here.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I thought I was doing you a favor by giving you anyway. Thank you.
You ain't even paid me rent yet.
Yeah, exactly. We hadn't even made it to the first month for you to pay me rent yet. Thank you to those who share my vision and believe that greatness can be achieved with the right environment and surroundings. Although we couldn't make things work at BCU, the goal and mission are still the same. We serve to lead to serve. We will continue with our pillars. Respect. Oh, wait a second. The Ed Reed Foundation vision. You know what the first pillar is, Drew? Respect. Educate, empower, and dream. Seemed like there wasn't much respect that was being given to the institution that had been around for well before Ed Reed was born, thought of, brought on the planet, success at Miami, went to be a Hall of Fame. Bethune-Cookman was around way before Ed Reed. It's going to be around way longer than Ed Reed, hopefully, Lord willing. So, respect, though. One of the pillars. One of the pillars, huh? Okay. So Drew, you saw that, your initial reaction as you read that, your thoughts go where as you're reading that and hear that?
There's a publicist somewhere who did a damn good job of spinning that.
Yeah.
Somewhere. Yeah, I mean, whoever had release, they did a very good job of spinning that. And for us giving his perspective, I really honestly do believe he wanted to come in and do good things at Bethune-Cookman.
I do too.
But the approach was totally off. And Bryan, as a FAMU Rattler, I should be loving this chaos right now. I really should, with this being our rivalry, but I can't. I can't.
I can't either.
I can't do it. I can't do it because when it's all said and done, yeah, me and my brother may not get along, but doggone it, that's my brother. You can't disrespect my brother. I can slap him upside his head all day, but you touch him, we gonna have some problems. And that's what that felt like with Bethune in that situation. So and I have other feelings, but I'll hold it for a little bit later on in the conversation.
Yeah, I know coming up later on in the show, we're gonna bring on our good friend Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, get his thoughts on this. I'm fascinated from a consultant standpoint of somebody who might be in a position. Now, I'm not saying that Doc was involved in consulting Bethune, but let's just say what he does in consulting might be centered around something like this. The university has problems. Okay. That part
Can
is
I
very
say something
clear.
about that, Bryan? And can I say something while you talk about the university has problems? All right. Please, folks, stop these innuendos that there's financial mismanagement of money and people are stealing money at Bethune-Cookman. That is not the case. They may have made some poor decisions with the money that they have gotten, but nobody has been stealing money from Bethune-Cookman. So I'm tired of seeing that part of it. He exposed them for stealing money. No, just like with anything, people make bad decisions. Bryan, if I was to give you $10,000 right now, you may blow it in 2 days. Why? Because you made a bad decision with the money. Did you steal it though? No, you may have mismanaged it and did some stupid stuff with it, but you didn't do anything illegal with it. So I really want people to please throw that narrative out of this whole conversation. Bad decisions with money, possibly. Stealing money, please leave that one alone. I don't even want to see that in the chat. Please.
Yeah, and I again, when I said issues, I wasn't referring to anything like that.
No, but I wanted to make sure I got that out.
And it's funny you said that because I tried to go back and listen to the Twitter space that Hale Wildcats did, and I was petitioning trying to get a couple of people, Brad Gillens, who we've had on the ONG Strike Zone, who covers Bethune. I was trying to see if I could get somebody who's got a deeper knowledge and understanding of things at Bethune, who might even be heavily covering this, to come in and talk with us. So that might be next week kind of thing, given the proximity of how close things happen. But I am fascinated to get more and shine a light. See, the biggest thing people have to understand: Bethune-Cookman is a private institution, whereas Florida A&M is a state-funded university. Everything that comes into Bethune is either tuition or donations. Okay, that's part of being a private institution, and so I
And a
don't
few
know.
grants here and there.
Right, a few grants there, and I know the state of Florida even granted them some funds, but you know there are issues that led to the uh, the effects of what we saw go through the athletic department, where you've had um, the football program lose or not have the full complement of resources. Just the fact that you've gone through the hurricanes that the school went through creates challenges. And so a lot of things have to be in place, in order, to be able to manage that. And that's a tall task for any school. I, and that's what's disappointing about the Ed Reed way of trying to come in and and talk down upon what was there. I think there's a way to do things. He saw Coach Prime and what Dion did as a model. But I don't think Ed Reed appreciated the differences in Bethune and Jackson State. I don't think I don't think there are enough. There's not enough background for Ed Reed to tactfully spin and market things the way Deion Sanders did. And that's one thing people got to understand. Deion Sanders is a tactful marketer. There is nothing that he didn't do or say that didn't have a purpose behind it. So, with that said, what do you think Ed Reed's purpose was when he got on Instagram and went off?
Frustration.
I read, huh?
Frustration.
Frustration. Right. And I wish I could find this article. I know Kelvin's online. I saw him in the chat room. He sent me a great article that talked about Ed Reed and why. I'm maybe I can find it coming out of whenever we do take a break and go into Dr. Cavill. But I don't know if I'm paraphrasing it right by talking about the ego. Here's what I've said about athletes, Hall of Fame athletes with a lot of money. And I said this about Coach Prime. They are guys who want to get things done on their clock. And when you roll in certain circles, when you have certain kind of money and resources, that's easy to do for yourself because you're you. So when Deion wants things done, for example, he got it done. Right? But also notice Deion, he worked with his athletic director, Ashley Robinson. Right? And Ashley Robinson worked with him. There was a symbiotic relationship there, I believe, from what I've seen and have heard, that allowed for a lot of things to happen. And maybe everything didn't happen on Deion's timeline.
I was going to say it's kind of hard to work with your athletic. Kind of hard to work with the athletic director when the athletic director spent half his time on the road coaching the basketball team.
Okay, now see, here we get into it. Now, see, if you want to call this your frustration and the fact that in Ed Reed's second post, and he got up there and he calls out Reggie Theus, and I think he threw his name out there. That was a source. When he did that, that tells me that those two were never on the same page. That tells me, Drew, that I don't know if Ed Reed was Reggie Theus's choice. You know what I'm saying? Because if you were my guy and you were the guy I went out there after, and whoever else that Reggie Theus has to go before to get the approval of Ed Reed to be the next coach, then that kind of thing doesn't happen. You don't get to throw my name out there under the bus after day 25 because things haven't gone exactly as I promised. If we have a tight relationship, you know what I'm saying, Drew?
That's a big if.
I don't think that happens. So that tells me, one, that the Theus-Ed Reed relationship doesn't seem like it was great from the jump. You know? I think there are instances here where you where I want to go with here, Drew, because there's so many different things here. Let's ask the question. Ask the question, Drew. With
I'm waiting.
everything that's going on, okay? Why did Bethune have Ed Reed in the position that he's in? If they hadn't signed the deal,
please expand on that because I want to see where you go before I go where I want to go.
If they haven't signed the deal, they haven't. I mean, you knew after that thing happened last Saturday that things were going to go bad. I firmly believe that. Now, I also think what played a factor in this, Drew, and watch me here. It was Thursday, I think, when Edrin James came on campus. Did you see that?
Was it Thursday? I mean, I remember him coming on campus.
Wednesday or Thursday? Wednesday or Thursday. Okay. Hall of Famer Edrin James came on campus. And I know there were some Instagram posts, some things that went out there. And I'd be willing to bet that was the moment that somebody said, okay, we need to put an end to this real quick. Either we announce the man as the coach or we pull back and we put some tough restrictions on Ed Reed to say, hey, Ed Reed, you can only do X, Y, and Z. It has to go through us.
That's why the contract goes down. That's why the contract goes down.
I'm guessing. Now, that's just our speculation. But when you do what you did, wouldn't I have affirmed, again, my organization, which has been around hundreds of years. Nope, excuse me, thousands. Nope, hundreds. Yeah, hundreds of years. Sorry, too many zeros. Hundreds of years before you, I got to protect my institution, right? And so let's craft how we want to do this. And so now when Ed Reed, and you go back and forth of Ed Reed getting up there and saying, I didn't resign. No, they didn't. You didn't resign.
You can't resign for a position you never had.
He had it in principle.
But you didn't have
it. He had it in principle. Well,
you can't resign from a position you never had. So he did not lie.
He didn't lie. Well, look, I do want to I want to point out I wanted to read Bethune's statement because I think Bethune's statement came out probably 10 to 12 hours after. Actually, no. It came out 6:54 p.m. by Bethune. Their official statement. Okay. Official statement by Bethune. Bethune-Cookman University has announced that it has decided not to proceed with contract negotiations with Ed Reed to become the next head football coach at BCU. After undergoing a detailed assessment and review of the state of our football program, we have determined that it is in the best interest of our university, athletics program, and the football student athletes to reopen the search and identify the next leader of Bethune-Cookman Wildcats football. While we appreciate the initial interest in our football program displayed by Mr. Reed during the course of recent weeks, this is the part that I love right here, Drew. We are also mindful of the qualities and attributes that must be exhibited by our institutional personnel during what have been uniquely challenging times for our campus as we recover from the impact of 2 hurricanes during the past fall semester. BCU was founded with core guiding principles centered around integrity, accountability, and respect for others. Remember, that was one of those first pillars of Ed Reed's foundation, right? Respect.
Correct.
These guiding principles have and will continue to weigh heavily on all decisions made that impact our university. Blah, blah, blah. We remain steadfast and committed to building a championship caliber football program, blah, blah, blah. Our university community has placed the utmost trust and faith in us to continue to advance our institution, and we continue to strive to live up to the high standards that have been set for all individuals affiliated with our illustrious university. That's from Bethune-Cookman, not from the athletic director. That's from Bethune-Cookman.
Athletic director can't send out a statement when he losing a basketball game. You know, this is
I firmly believe the whole Reggie Theus athletic director thing was possibly to help
increase his pay. That's what that was.
His pay, maybe fundraise a little bit. I don't know. I mean, he is now what was that? Isn't Theus a Hall of Famer now?
He's a finalist. He's a finalist.
A finalist. Okay, so there's an opportunity here where you're about to potentially be. Don't sleep. Somebody must find that really attractive to have a future NBA Hall or basketball Hall of Famer as your athletic director. I guess. What do you make before? I know we're going to have Dr. Ville coming up here in the second hour. Protest. Students are planning to protest. Student athletes. I love a good protest. It's scheduled for noon. I don't really know what they're protesting. I mean, are they protesting the way that this was handled? Are they protesting that they want Ed Reed? I don't know what to make of the student protest.
News story at 5, I guess, tomorrow. News story at 5 tomorrow.
Yeah, I see. Who was that? HBCU Talk had said, dropped a rumor there and said that that there was a report that Ed Reed was asked to leave. I don't know if it was this past Monday. He was not under contract. We've already kind of established that. I'm just kind of going through some of your guys' thoughts and comments there.
Can I put out my point that we talked about last night, Brian?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, before we get to this break. And this actually originally started with the conversation that I had with another friend of the program. I don't want to call his name out, but I got a text from him last night, and he asked me if Ed Reed was never under contract, how could he technically recruit those kids and have those kids come to campus to sign with Bethune and those players who already signed with Bethune if he was never under contract? Can he even offer a scholarship if he's not in the employ of Bethune-Cookman? And I sat there and I thought about that question. And then I text him back. This is an HR nightmare. Here's why. Ed Reed's riding around on their golf cart. Ed Reed's out there picking up trash. Why was his office not clean? Maybe because he should have never been on campus. Want to throw that out there. Because if you're not an employee, you could come, we could have meetings while we ratify everything, but you should not be doing any work for our institution or for our business, because the university is a business. Because anything that you do, we could be held liable for it. Or you could sue us. If Ed Reed goes out there and strains his back or throws his back out or trips over something and breaks his leg, you can't get workers' comp because he's not an employee. His only recourse at that point would be to use a liability policy and sue them. Or Ed Reed riding around on that golf cart and he damages some property or a person on the golf cart, then who gets sued? He's on Bethune's golf cart. So Bethune, because Ed Reed should have never been driving because he's not an employee of the university. These are HR and legal issues that, once again, Brian, someone should have been the adult in the room to say, we want him here. We know he can help us, but we got to do this the right way to cover our you-know-what and to make sure his you-know-what is covered. We've got Dr. Cavill here waiting in the room, Brian. Let everybody marinate on that while we go to this break on the other side.
Will do. I love the fact that, as I told you, you're the only person who thought. I mean, that was a next level thought and commentary. But I told you, only way you thought of that is having been in that kind of situation.
Haven't been that level of management and having
been in that level of management. Yes,
and having to think through things from a liability, make decisions based upon liability. So being that upper level of management, somebody in that room should have been part of the conversation.
That you got to, you know what?
It ain't nothing personal. It's business.
No, exactly. It's a thinking worst case scenario. It's having somebody who thinks about the worst case scenarios that could happen. It's unpleasant to be that person, but that's why you hire that person to help you out.
That's why you hired that dude.
Right now, that dude. Yeah, that dude may have been around on the campus of Bethune-Cookman, and he may have told some people this, and they chose not to listen. So, interesting. Coming up on the other side, we'll talk more about the Ed Reed saga between the relationship, as I saw somebody tweet out, and I can't remember who it is said, but the Ed Reed and Bethune-Cookman relationship didn't even pass the dating stage. So we'll talk to Dr. Cavill more about that on the other side. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap. We'll be back in 2.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavill of Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
Mobile banking from Truist actually works for you.
It gives you simple, smart, personalized insights to keep you one step ahead. Because we think that's the kind of control you deserve over your money. When you start with care, you get a different kind of bank. Truist. Download the mobile app now.
At Tyson, we know taste is local. Some like their beef pit smoked, their chicken spiced all the way up, or their pork sweet and saucy. Local flavors, global impact. That's what feeding the world is all about.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down. It's like a loop machine.
It's the show where we take you inside the game before the game begins. It's the pregame. With your host, Charles Bishop and Neely. So get ready, because we pregame harder than the other show's party. It's the pregame.
Your ad could be ran here. MyJBN.com/support. MyJBN.com/support for more information.
Time to call a credit repair company to fix my credit. Hold the phone, man. You can do it yourself with Credit Versio. That's way too hard. Call the credit repair company. Most credit repair companies only work on 1 or 2 accounts at a time, making it slow and expensive. You won't figure that out for months. Ignore him. Credit Versio's brilliant software scans all 3 credit bureaus, finds the accounts that are hurting your score, and guides you through the entire process. Anyone can do it. Let's fast forward and see the results. Wow, I fixed my own credit and saved hundreds. You can do this. Visit creditversio.com.
At CDW, we get speed as the new currency of success.
Our team spends way too much time tending to outdated applications and software when they should be focused on driving application agility and innovation.
CDW Amplified Development Services modernizes software and application development to help accelerate innovation and digital transformation.
So you mean building new applications, UI, and mobile interfaces?
Well, you said you needed to innovate more quickly.
Oh, so he's a listener.
To do more at scale, trust CDW Amplified Development Services.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids' apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
From novice.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN SportsWrap. Bryan, A.D., and joining us, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill of Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Doc, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Had a good break for a day. Friday night was good. Pizza night every 2 weeks with Deuce, so he was happy. So it was a good weekend.
Hey, there you go. Good weekend.
What's the pizza of choice, Dr. Cavill?
We tend to do pepperoni.
Okay.
Okay.
I won't
All right.
name the chain since they hadn't given us a sponsorship yet.
See,
I either
I
do
knew you were
sausage or
gonna say.
Hawaiian.
I like that. I knew Doc was gonna say that. I wasn't even gonna put it out there because I knew Doc was gonna.
I didn't say what kind. I
sponsorship.
just said the pizza. I meant the type of pizza: sausage,
Yeah, no, you said it
pepperoni,
right. You said it right.
meat
That's why I gave him
lovers. You know.
pepperoni. It's usually like a double pepperoni. He likes plenty of pepperoni, so it's usually double pepperoni. My
Gotcha.
wife tends to eat just the cheese, so we keep it simple. We get a salad and make it do what it do.
There you go. There you go. Okay, so the story of I thought Saturday, Doc, was going to be a nice night, good afternoon to just kind of sit back and catch up on some SWAC and MEAC basketball, and then the Ed Reed story just kind of dropped in our laps, and I mean it had everything, um, and from so many different angles, and once again it churns up many of the emotions which we HBCU Nation is still not over the Coach Prime era. So stories like the Ed Reed story just continues to sort of whip up the spirits of everyone. So before we get into specific questions, your general thoughts as you watched it play out, as you saw the press release, and then the commentary, comments, articles, and then maybe finally the conclusion with the Bethune-Cookman release around 7 o'clock that evening.
Yeah, at first I'll take you like most people in terms of a fan. I was just like, oh no, and I was just like, this is not going to be good. As a consultant, as I do a lot of times, I went into strategy. I was like, all right, this is not going to be good for either side, and we need to mitigate this and do a risk assessment as soon as possible. So I went in to saying, all right, these are the type of things we need to do immediately.
And so I think there's a couple of different stages here. I know Drew mentioned stage one, which was the initial hire, or let me rephrase,
Offer.
the agreement in principle, because I guess it's not a hire until you officially sign on the dotted line. So we'll just say the initial agreement in principle with Ed Reed, which then led to, okay, which we found out through his first social media rant, 1A, social media rant 1B. Okay, those two kind of things led us to, or gave us knowledge that he had been on campus working. So we have that period from initial agreement to Ed Reed working on campus. You have that segment there, and Drew brought up some great points, some HR liabilities. I know a lot of us were still trying to wonder, well, when is the press release? How come there hasn't been? Because Ed Reed was hired after the head coaches of Mississippi Valley State and North Carolina A&T. He was hired before they were announced. And their press conferences happened still before Ed Reed's initial press conference. So let's start at point A, which we learned about through the social media rants, Doc, and then we'll come on the side of the social media rants afterwards. If you are consulting with if you're consulting with the university, what are you advising them of, or maybe how are you telling them to proceed if they're coming to you and say, Doc, we have this Hall of Famer coming. How should we handle this? We're not sure if we want to be in the same space and go down the same road that Jackson State went down. But we do know we need the help and the exposure?
Great question. And let me level set this a little bit. The first thing is, and I see that you don't want to say it, but you say it because you're just so used to it. One of the things that needs to be clear, and this is just the journalist in me, is that he was not hired, right? At least
I
from
slipped on that.
Bethune-Cookman's
Right.
perspective. Right now, the lawyers,
mhm.
Ed, if he wants to go this route, he might try to say, yes, I was hired, even though he clearly has said in those tapes that he was not hired, right? So there is a framework that we need to consider because there's going to be one that's in terms of HR, Human Relations Department at Bethune-Cookman about how they define somebody hiring. You probably have heard the terms about onboarding somebody, right? Which is usually part of the hiring process. How does Bethune-Cookman determine their hiring practice in terms of onboarding somebody? What does that look like? At places at Texas Southern, there used to be a process in terms of onboarding somebody that they had to go through, sign, go to HR, then they go meet the principal folks that they'll be working with, constituents and things of the nature, who they work under. They need to get signatures from all these different levels, which include signatures from their direct supervisor that they got a key to the office. There could be a signature document that they got to pass to be able to drive on campus. There could be signature for emails. You can get an email. These are things, if you're in the court, that they're going to look for to try to determine whether somebody who's arguing that they were hired could prove that they were technically hired, right? So those things that we probably just gloss over that are real in terms of folks that are in mid-management, certainly executive management, in regards to indication of how the court may decide somebody's hired. Now, traditionally for a university, which is different than folks that work in a corporate sector or in a business environment, where essentially your direct supervisor working with HRs can pretty much onboard you and pretty much have you sign paperwork, tell you, hey, your start date is here, you'll get your first paycheck at this time. At a university, right, the only individuals that can hire or fire in a university, particularly the university that has a board that they answer to, is the board. Let me say that again. At most universities that have a board, even if that board is not directly over them, the only individuals that can hire or fire is the board. President can't. Athletic director, what we now call in many cases vice president of intercollegiate athletics, a provost for the academic faculty. They cannot hire. They can make what you call recommendations. At every level, there's somebody that you make a recommendation to, that this is the person that we want. I recommend that we move forward with the hiring process and hire this person. I recommend that we terminate this person, which obviously lay language is fire somebody, right? So those are the things that you look for in terms of organization outside. But to get back to your original question, and I think Drew may have a follow-up question, you asked in regards to a consulting perspective, how would you work with this? If I was working with the university, and it's extremely important that we look at the layers of this at the university, right? Because each of those folks I would consult with differently at the university. Let's start with the athletic director, right? Who, whenever they got wind of this, they need to go in a strategy mode themselves. In most cases, they would directly call, because usually in these cases, they would have a contact, they would have a cell phone number or something like that. They would, even if they don't have an office number, depending on where you're talking about, whether the person has an office or not, they would have a cell number, and they would call an individual with the cell number and say, hey, this is unbecoming of a university. I need you to get out in front of this and state an apology, right? That's a record. They have email. If you think it's egregious, and depending on the tone of the conversation, if the person is looking as if they may not do it or question, then you probably want to put it in an email as well, if they have an email. So now you have a record, accountability. To
Paper
say
trail.
that you do you got a paper trail, right? And so those are some things. If you're the AD, you also want to contact the president or chancellor, depending on what type of institution it's the highest person over the university, under the board. You would want to call that because it's probably the person you, or at least the person that you report directly to. Because in some cases, the VP may report to a CFO, not the president. Lately, most of our ADs, VPs, they report part of the cabinet and they report to the president. But there are still some cases where an athletic director will not report directly to the president. In that case, they need to report directly to whoever they report to. CFO, maybe a VP of advancement, student affairs, something of that nature. And they need to provide an update. Hey, I called, provided a type 1 level. I just did a call, I did a warning or whatever, and I asked this individual to send out a retort, essentially a apology in regards to the comments, which to some degree, either the university got to Ed Reed or somebody consulting with Ed Reed got to Ed Reed, or maybe he did it himself. But by the end of the night, he had pretty much had sent out apology, which was appropriate in this case for damage control, if nothing else, in regards to doing that. Which gives me to the point, if I was consulting Ed Reed, I would do that exactly. Ed Reed, this is not a good look. You need to get ahead of this. I know how you might feel, frustrated, whatever, but we need to make sure that we do this. You haven't signed a contract based on what we seem to know. Even if we had, I probably would tell him, hey, man, this is not what we want to do. No, you're frustrated. I feel the same thing, but this is not the best way that you want to handle this in terms of what's out there in the atmosphere, right? These are the issues. So that's kind of how I would consult with the president. And this is kind of based on what type of president you have, chancellor. You would be consulting with them and you say, hey, this is an image problem for the university. We need to get out of there. We need to get some good press out there. We need to get to our communication team. Communication team needs to be working with the athletic director, the coach, and we need to frame these different things, and we need to get ahead of this as quickly as possible and immediately to get this out there and say something like that. That would be my course. There's some, I do want to say there's an option where some people would say, let it be quiet and let's see if it dies away. From most of the research that I've done, most of the training I had, it's always best to get in front of it. But I do want to say that that is not the only way you can help. If I had the privilege and somehow I was consulting with the board, there are boards that do consulting work. I haven't had a chance to consult with the entire board. I've had some board members that I've, not at Texas Southern University, but other places where I've had a chance to talk with directly about their concerns, usually regarding athletics. Some of them has been in terms of curriculum development type things that I've got to talk with. Privilege. I won't discuss any names because it's privilege. But in terms of that part of it, there is a case where I've been talking about it. And it'd be similar to a president type of thing, that this is image that's unbecoming. It's going to put the university in negative light, and we need to get in front of it as quickly as possible. We need to protect ourselves. In some cases, I would have a consideration. We need to consider if this happens again, what is our framework of how we're going to move forward? How long are we going to deal with this in regards to before we have to take drastic measures? If there's a board meeting upcoming, obviously this would be on the top of the board meeting in regards to how board meetings feel. And sometimes we got to be careful because we'll talk about like the NCAA or boards, we'll talk about it as if it's one entity. We forget that the board or the NCAA is made up of multiple people, I should say, right? And the NCAA is multi-level, I wanted to say that. But in terms of board, it's more people. So it could be simply as them deciding not to move forward with negotiations. But one people would think it's the board, but it could be 7 people on the board. And it could come down to a vote. It could be 4-3. And they'll do this in the back room, closed doors. They'll come back and say they're all on the same page. Good practice of the board. But it could be very narrow in the back. I mean, this could not be a decision where everybody's on the same page in the back, closed doors. And it can get very debatable back there. Some people would be call it, hot in regards to that. Now they're professionals, so they, when I say hot, I'm not talking about in the backyard type hot. But yes, it could be passionate. I guess probably be a better word to use about the dialogue. about why we should keep moving forward. We can get through this process. We can put a statement out there to say that he's going to go through this training, for example. Management, right? You've heard those kind
Sensitivity
of things
training.
before. Sensitivity training, exactly, something of that nature. Or you could have the drag measure and people like, hey, this is not good luck. We need to get 100. We need to stop this right now. Let's stop the negotiation. Let's move forward. We already have some concerns. The other thing is quietly, we don't know what else may have happened that didn't go public, good or bad, right? Which would mitigate each of those levels how they felt about things based on the week. Like you said, he could have been on campus. He wasn't asked to come to campus. People could have some concerns about that in terms of human resources. Could be talking about, hey, this is our general counsel, the legal entity of the university. Could be like, hey, this is a serious concern we have in terms of how we're going to deal with this one. He hasn't gone through the onboarding process in this case. Yeah, may have a athletic director, VP, and saying, hey, we need athletics is a little different. We need to speed through this process. We need to allow him to bring students to campus and go through the process. We are planning to hire this person, which means we need to proceed. No big deal. And so we'll have him do apology. And if people throughout the organization feel that way, you can get past this. But usually in real life, the concerns you'll have people on both sides. And that's where it gets challenging. You'll have folks, and somehow you have to have a leader that gets everybody, and whether it's diplomatically done in terms of democratic process where there's votes and whoever wins the votes, you have it there, and you can put it in that process. So those are multi-levels of how challenging this is that sometimes we forget and think it's extremely simple when it's really not. The last thing that I saw scrolled across there, I will talk about this real quick before I know Drew had questions. I apologize for being so winded, but I really wanted to provide some details. And I'm glad that you all gave me this platform to do this because we don't often have this part. I think somebody asked about should the commissioner, the SWAC office, get involved. No, this is not a SWAC. Obviously, the other institutions will have some concern. They'll probably talk about it and stuff like that. But this is at the institutional level, and the institution must take care of it. Now, if you are a commissioner with good standing and you have the rapport relationship, you certainly would call out to the athletic director, the president, chancellor, whichever one the university has at the top level. And if you have somebody on the board, which is not rarely happens. Usually the interaction with the commissioner is going to be the president, chancellor, or the AD, VP of athletics, senior women administrator, and some coaches. So it's another reason that you have to be careful with this. Traditionally, other than maybe some cordialities, a commissioner doesn't have a relation with folks on the board. It's a separate entity that's only there for governance structure. So one, it would be almost out of the bounds for a commissioner to talk with them. Right now, if they called him in, obviously he would give his best expertise, almost like a consultant in that manner. But for him to jump into it, or her, commissioner of any organization, that is pretty much out of bounds and not something you want to see, just because that's not a direct line. Remember, the commissioner of a conference reports to the presidents and chancellors, not the board, not a coach, not an AD. He reports and follows the framework of the presidents and chancellors. And if you know anything about presidents and chancellors at universities, not just HBCUs, they are executive level people with high level of esteem and academic thought process, executive level, and you don't just tell them what to do.
Good point. Couple of things. It was interesting that you brought up the onboarding and the hiring process because I know the system that you talk about is similar in public schools. If you go to work for a school district, no matter what the principal or whatever, ultimately your contract has to get ratified by the school board. Because I've had to go through that twice at the two school districts that I've worked in. But when I was at a private school, it was just directly with the, the principal of the school.
That's right.
He was in charge of the school. He makes the hiring. He makes the he made all those decisions. And sometimes in government, you have to go before your contract has to be voted on by the council or county commissioner. When I was on an employment contract, it had to be approved by the county commission where I was at. But when I was just on a regular, just as an employee, no, that was done by the city manager, the administrator of that municipality. So that was a good point you brought up there. But you made me think about something you're doing with that SWAC analogy. And, I hate to lump our Florida institutions into this together, but, this year has looked like it's been the challenge of the Florida HBCUs. If you go back to it hasn't even been a year since FAMU dealt with the Courtney Crochet issue and the fallout from that. And just like during that issue when we had the certification issue at the SWAC office, reached out and was able to offer some support with personnel that helped them get the students certified. Would that be appropriate or out of bounds if asked, if the SWAC would help with some PR and some other things of that nature to help Bethune out of this situation and maybe some other type of support? Would that be out of bounds? Would that be unusual, or would that be something if asked, or even would it even be appropriate from Dr. Kwan say, I know you guys got your issue down there. If you need some help, we can help. We can send our PR team down there to help you, blah, blah, blah. Talk me through that, Dr. Gavia.
Well, the SWAC has a communication office, not really a PR, public relations office.
Yes, communications office.
A whole different thing. But to your point, oftentimes the communication team will have some skills that a public relations consulting group or unit would have. And so, yes, if they reached out, certainly you would provide any help that you could. I think you need to be very careful from the commissioner's office reaching out to Bethune-Cookman in treading on what is their internal process. Now, in that case, it really depends on the relationship, right? It's a new interim president down there. So I'm at this point.
New institution to the conference.
Right. And not so much new because they've been there a while, but I'm talking about they had a new interim president. And I'm not sure.
I'm talking about Bethune coming into the SWAC.
No, I'm talking about in terms of, remember they served, they knew, but I'm talking about in terms of the president of the university. It's my understanding it's an interim president. And
correct.
They haven't been there but so long, right? So the question becomes, generally when a new president comes in, a new chancellor comes in an institution, the SWAC will reach out and say, hey, I'm the commissioner, this is what we do or whatever. But I'm saying, has that taken place? Because a lot of times they'll get on their schedule. Charles is a real hands-on type of person, and that's not necessarily what any commissioner would do. Oftentimes it won't just be a phone call because that could be kind of interpersonal. He'll schedule to actually come down for a meeting, to meet with the president in the office and really just get their ideas of how they like to see things done in terms of the communicating, right? And that's where a lot of this is hashed out. When you meet to say, what is the best way that you would like me to communicate? Is it through email? Is it a phone call? Is it a cell call? What times do you would you like to receive calls or don't want to receive calls, right? So you get all that kind of particulars. So depending on whether that has taken place gives you more indication of how likely it would be for a commissioner, in this case, the SWAC office, to reach out. It really is open. It depends. So that's the challenge. So I know some of this is difficult to listen to because I can't just necessarily give you a yes/no answer because it really depends on the relationship of people that are taking place throughout this process in timing. But that's an excellent question in regards to understanding PR. I guess one thing that could be added to this is the statement that did come out from Bethune-Cookman Athletics. It was on the website, certainly came out on Twitter, was back on December 27th, right after Christmas, during the week of Kwanzaa. Bethune-Cookman University Athletics has entered an agreement in principle with Pro Football Hall of Fame Ed Reed to be its 16th head football coach. And I'm sure that one reason, because it looked like this was going to leak out. So they probably wanted to get ahead of it, which was smart. But I'm sure this was vetted through human resources, legal counsel. And so the words here are very intriguing and something that many people need to pay attention to. Because in case something like this did happen, this letter is going to be extremely important. And notice, again, it says Bethune-Cookman University Athletics. Doesn't say university. So that's a challenge. It could be. But it says athletics has entered an agreement in principle with Pro Football Hall of Famer Ed Reed to be its 16th head football coach. So the athletic has entered into an agreement, right? And depending on the university, they have some bounds and frameworks of what they can agree upon.
And when.
Exactly. Versus saying this is in a contractual arrangement with Bethune-Cookman University approved by the board. Two entirely different statements. So those are some things that we have to grapple with.
Now, here's a question. And I'm glad you brought that December 27th press release up. Somebody leaked this. The whole reason this mess got started back in December is because somebody ran their mouth.
Well, let me say this. Because
you were in Daytona when this broke out. You were in Daytona when this broke, Brian.
Again, I'm not gonna say who I was near, but I was standing there with people who wrote that release, and I actually happened to also be in the building. Former athletic director Lynn Thompson was in the building as well. I'm just saying, so I'll let you know where I was amongst BCU people. And
you saw this play out in real time.
Yes, this was not intended to go out when it did. That's all I'm going to say.
Right, but to your point, as you said, it was being leaked, and it might be not leaked in terms of what you're thinking about when you were there, but remember, it first came out basically Brent Murphy.
Yes.
So that was a leak. Somehow he had sources that got it, which could have been Bethune-Cookman or it could have been Ed Reed's people. But it got out. And so since they got out, now Bethune-Cookman has to act.
Yeah. Yeah. They had to act.
This is probably what they did, what you talking about when you were down, right? Is their response to that originally.
Yeah, because it had got, I know Hale Wildcats had released it probably. That's who when I saw it and was hit on my timeline, I'm like, hey, look at this, and I'm like, huh? And then okay, and then all of a sudden I showed it to somebody, and they were shocked. They were like, oh, okay. Oh, well, I just got word we released the statement 10 minutes ago. Okay, so that's how that all kind of played out. It was not planned. To say
right,
the
which
least.
is the point of all of this and how important it is. But this day and age, it is so difficult to keep things in house. It's because so many eyes, not just people leaking it, but just people make references because they see somebody at the airport with a phone call, and you don't want to do business over the phone because it's so impersonal on the computer. But once you drive, see somebody, talk with somebody, people are already turning and say, "Hey, I saw the VP of Athletics meeting with such and such and such." They might be talking about they don't have a coach, so and we got stuff before coaches may go. So I had heard about
Deion
this
flights plans
before all
have?
that. I heard all exactly. I heard all this before that when it came out, but at that point I was not acting as a journalist. I was acting as a consultant. So I had to hold on to it. I wasn't saying nothing.
True. So the viral rant was out on Saturday, and I think we've talked about it on our shows. Personal thoughts about it. I just saw in the commentary somebody had said that Ed Reed was I don't know how true this is, supposedly was asked to leave campus on Monday. This would have been the Monday following the rant. Now, granted, we saw the video of Ed Reed with Hall of Famer Edgerrin James midweek. That was Wednesday or Thursday when they were there, when those two were there chopping it up, and it sounded like Ed Reed was gathering supporters. There's an article, HBCUsports.com says that, or this comes from Edrin James, apparently, had said that to Reed that Shaq and other billionaires were ready to invest in Bethune-Cookman. And it brings me to this thought, Doc, about the conditions that people seem to have and want to support. I think that's the best way I want to put that. And again, I've said this for a while now. Be mindful and careful of the people who are doing things for HBCUs and with HBCUs.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes. And it started with, when that started? That started with and I hate to call her, she was the former wife of Jeff Bezos, and
Scott,
I hate that I can't.
Mackenzie Scott.
Scott, thank you. When Miss Scott,
Mackenzie Scott,
the billionaire philanthropist, decided to put money into those HBCUs, a lot of schools, but mostly HBCUs, right?
Yeah,
And I think she
Mackenzie.
had
Yeah.
Mackenzie Scott, thank you. Mackenzie Scott, thank you. I got to make sure I remember that because she's bigger and better than just former Mrs. Jeff Bezos.
That's
Because
right.
when you talk about doing she did something for them, gave them money, and told them, you go do what you need to do to improve. There was very few limitations or you got to use money on X, Y, and Z. And no, it was like, here's money, use it, improve the infrastructure or scholarships or the funding or whatever you need to do for your universities. And then there were other people who were doing things with universities. And so seeing and hearing this article sits and makes me feel some kind of way, because here's another example that people are now going to come back and say, oh, BCU, you just lost out on X, Y, and Z dollars because you didn't let Ed Reed do what he wanted to do. No. It's not supposed to work that way, is it? If Shaq and other billionaires care so much, why does it take Ed Reed for you to want to give to HBCUs? If you want to change things, donate, whether Ed Reed's there or not. So I don't know. I wanted to get your take and thought on this mindset, which now is starting to fester. I think it kind of started with Coach Prime, but now it's really, I think, about to run rampant because of this celebrity donation, this celebrity giving that's happening. But again, I go back to, are you giving? Are you doing it for? Or are you just trying to do something with HBCUs?
And what you're saying is donations with conditions.
Yes.
Which is the real world, and it happens, so we can't ignore it. I do think it's important that you need to understand who you're entering into a relationship with. And as somebody said, Shaq may not be literally a billionaire, but he is certainly close to it. So if he's not, we're not going to argue over a couple of $1 million here and there. He's significantly rich, has
we got
money.
More than we got.
Right. He does have the ability to provide resources to an institution. I'm not going to get into the for and with. I do think if you're inside the organization, you need to consider that. But on the outside, I don't tell people what to do with their money. They want to give it, they want to give it. So be it. I do think it is important for an organization to understand that you need to be prepared when you talk about entering into relationships. And you need to have preparation in regards to the conditions that you're going to take the money. That needs to be something that you've already pretty much from a board level have already decided what that looks like. Naming rights for an office, naming rights for a building, for example, are some of the more simple things. Stadium naming rights that we talk about, arena naming rights. Those are some things that you want to consider of what that looks like. And then you got to be careful in terms of some donations in regards to NCAA rule guidelines of how you can accept certain donations for athletics. There has to be some part in it. I do think it's interesting that Kevin Rozier talked about officers should be it's somebody's job to clean the office every day. Again, we need to be careful because we make a lot of assumptions with our biases. We don't know what the rotation is for an institution in regards to their cleaning habit. For a business, for that matter, they may be on a 2-day rotation. They don't clean office for 2 days. And then obviously we're talking about the individual that said his office clean. He could have been talking about the floor wasn't swept. We don't know. We in our mind when he's talking about. We don't know what he means literally when he said his office wasn't clean. It was dirty. It could mean that it hadn't been groomed in regards to a dust mite. We don't know whether he's just talking about his trash being has
Just
not
forgot
been
to take the
emptied,
trash out.
or if something, or if something's on the floor. So we don't know what level it is. So some people just allow their biases to get in to the framework of a conversation just because they want to be able to prove some things. And I'm not saying that about Rozier because I love his commentaries on the OMG strike zone. He's a very thoughtful person. But I just wanted to take that opportunity to say that sometimes we'll take a line and run with it based on how we see things and we make assumptions. And one of the things I try to do from my perspective as a consultant, or what we do on our show, is we don't necessarily want to be in the business of breaking news. We want to be in the business of explaining the process to you of how things take place. So we want to inform you on different things. So a lot of that is just what you want to do in regards to your ability to navigate the space and talk and have discussions. Now, some people are in the business of breaking news and they get paid to break news, so they better do it really well. And that's fine. So I'm not saying something wrong with it. I'm just saying that's not the place that I choose to be in and how I choose to operate what we do on our show inside the HBCU Sports Lab, or as I come in on a guest, that's more what I want to be in. And there's times where I will provide, some analytical lens. I will provide opinion. And so I want to make it clear that I'm not saying providing opinion is not something you should do. But I just want us to be a little mindful at times of how quick we're providing our opinion, if that makes sense.
Can we move for Drew? Can we move from Ed Reed to another point that I wanted to bring with Doc outside of Ed Reed? Unless you had something else you wanted to regarding Ed
No,
Reed.
I was gonna say, can we do it on the other side though?
We
This is
can.
an extra long segment.
If Doc can hang in there, let's go.
Yeah, I
I
got
want
a
to see
little
what
more
Doc
time.
say
Sorry.
about these. I want to see what Doc see about these BCSN rankings too. I want to make sure we get those in before he gets out of here.
Yeah, I want to get into that. That's good stuff.
All right, there it is. We'll come back with Dr. Kenyatta Cavill on the other side of the break. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap. We'll be back in 2.
To aficionado, find yourself